TESOL presents Free Friday webinars. Today we're going to talk about Thanksgiving activities because Thanksgiving is a little less than a month away. But even though we're here because we're here because of AmericanTESOL.com. You can find the recordings, the slides, everything via the AmericanTESOL.com/blogger or YouTube.com/ATESOL. You can find more about the certification courses if you go to AmericanTESOL.com, where you can get certification in teaching with technology, TESOL Advanced, and teaching young learners. And even though we are celebrating and talking about Thanksgiving activities, it's going to be Halloween around the corner, which is why Roscoe and I are dressed up here, because these are our Halloween costumes. We will be Bat Pug and Bat Pug's mother in a few days, so we wanted to say a quick hello in our Halloween costumes. So we'll go ahead and talk about what we're thankful for, and I'm going to take off the video just to make sure we have a great recording today. Thanksgiving is a really great time to be able to celebrate all kinds of things with your students. And the reason why is because there's so much that your students can learn about culture, and they can show appreciation. They can also be able to learn about assimilation, about collaboration with other countries. And that's really important for language learners. Our language learners are not only do they have to learn language, or our students from all over the world. And here we have we have participants from different countries, from Greece, from Brazil, from India, the US, Italy, I mean, just different places around the world. And our students, if they learn English, more than likely they're going to travel, or what they learn today, it's a global world, and they're going to have to interact with others who are from a different culture, from different traditions, that look different than them, that dress different. So Thanksgiving really embodies what happens when you meet others and you're able to really work together and collaborate and do great things. So with Thanksgiving, we learn about history, we learn about culture, we can learn about colonists and Native American tribes, food preparation, which also involves science and math, farming, which is the same, and it embodies science and math as well. Nautical science, same things about ship, what it was like to sail on a ship, what it's like now to sail on a ship, citizenship, and so much more. So the first thing we want to do is introduce our learners to the Thanksgiving story. And the reason we want to, even if we're in different countries, is because in other places do celebrate Thanksgiving too. For example, in in Canada, they celebrate their Thanksgiving. In fact, they've already celebrated their Thanksgiving in Canada. And that's right, Peggy says there's some controversy about Thanksgiving story. And definitely there is. So those are things that we can definitely share with our students. We have teenagers, we have adults, and even those issues today still have controversy. So for example, right now there's still tension between some Native American tribes. That's very much in the news, and what's happening in Dakota right now. So it's still something that's really, even though it happened a long time ago, it's still a controversy that we still have to look back on as well. So when I was teaching in Germany, one of the things that I did teach was Thanksgiving too. So even in Germany, we would teach in our language institute the Thanksgiving story, because I think in a lot of countries it's something to look at the different cultures and stuff. And there's different ways you can do this. It depends how old your learners are. So if your learners are very, very young, if you teach children, then you might want to do fun or a book or video. That's one way I taught very young learners in Germany. We would read the Thanksgiving story in a book that we sit around, and it was a picture book. There's also a lot of fun digital storytelling sites that I'll show you. You can take your adult students or even your adolescents, your teens, on virtual field trips, so that way they can get the story from different points of view. And I'll show you what that looks like. You can have them do it through a theater where they read aloud the different parts, and that way they get to role play different parts. You can show adults infographics and then really talk about the commercial side of Thanksgiving or any holiday that's coming up, because we have a lot of holidays coming up. And some of your students like Christmas, Hanukkah, just a bunch of different holidays. And a lot of times I use with my college students now infographics to really explore different parts of those statistics and research and what's happening with those holidays. So these are some of the sites. Well, I'm going to show you some of those sites in a little bit, but when the students learn about the Thanksgiving story, they also learn about assimilation, how another culture and country, and when they travel, I mean, if we think about what happened with Thanksgiving, it was about colonists who came from another country who decided to come, and they had to assimilate into another country, an entirely different culture and things that they were not used to. And so that's really important. A lot of times, so I've taught in over 20 countries. I've had learners from all kinds of countries. And assimilation is a big part of learning a language, or just being part of another country, as you have to understand the traditions, the history, the culture, the language, just many different things. So they the students can also learn about nature with the Thanksgiving story, peace, collaboration, what happens when we are able to be accepting, when we are able to collaborate with others that are different than us. So I think some of the best resources are actually from Scholastic. Scholastic.com has a lot of free resources. So those are the ones I'm going to show you, and then I'll show you some others as well. But the first one that I really like a lot for virtual field trip for adolescents, teens, and adult students is this one that says Tour the Pilgrim Village. And it's a video and it's a reenactment. You also hear different interviews from pilgrims and also from the Wampanoag tribe. So you'll hear the different you'll definitely hear different points of view, and it makes it look real. So these are really good videos. Some are a short, some are 16 minutes, and then some are even longer, 30 minutes. The other one I really like, and this is great for adolescents or young learners, is where students get to become one of the characters. They role play as either one of the boys that's from the tribe or a pilgrim girl. And after they choose the characters, they go on an interactive. So they click. This is actually from Plymouth.org. And what it does is it takes them through artifacts. They have to make decisions. They actually, they're historians, and they go through these artifacts, and then they figure out what they can learn from these artifacts. And it's interactive. So it's a great way to get your students to really reflect on what happened in the past in an interactive way. There's a whole entire lesson plan set that comes with it, an accompanying teacher guide. And the teacher guide is great because the teacher guide also shows you some different lesson ideas and instructional practices that I think are really great. So, for example, one of them is for students to start off with the KWL chart. They start off by saying what they know about, and yes, Rams asked if it's free, and yes, it is free. So it should be open to all and free. I'm not sure if every country can access it. I know not with every source. It always depends on the country, but so far I think you can. But with this one, it starts off with this mind map, and I think it's good for Thanksgiving because most students have heard of the name Thanksgiving and kind of know a few ideas about it. So they can say what they know about it. Um, and then they talk about what they want to learn about it, or what they wish they knew a little bit more about something maybe they don't know. And then of course the L on the chart is after they've gone through this investigation, what have they learned, what did the artifacts show them and teach them. But it has some other activities as well, so it does have some really great instructional practices that you can use with your students. So I talked about adults and how we can, and teens, and how we can teach them with infographics. With my college students, that we learn with infographics right now because they find it interesting. They also get to create their own infographics. And some of the best infographic creators you can find online as well that are free to use. So if you want your students to use them, I can give you the link, but if you want them to use them, then just go to infographics, shellycharl.com/infographics, and you'll find a bunch of ways your students can create free ones. I recommend Pictochart and Canva. They're pretty simple to use and have templates. But here's one about Turkey and traveling. This is from Nationwide. And then they have the top, it talks about what was the first Thanksgiving menu like, and now what is a modern Thanksgiving menu. What you can do is you can have your students compare when whatever holiday, big holiday they have, what is a huge meal that they have, and what is served during that meal. So, and if you teach language learners and you are in the US or Canada where they do celebrate Thanksgiving, then these menu items can also be different. So, for example, in my family, we don't usually have cranberry sauce ever, but we do serve tamales. So every Thanksgiving we've always had tamales. And so the students can talk about, the different traditional meals they have during holiday season in general, because soon after Thanksgiving um, is is Christmas, you have Hanukkah, you have Kwanzaa, um, Diwali. I mean, you have a lot of different holidays where families tend to get together and they get to celebrate with the big feast where they're at a table. So you can ask them, okay, how does it compare to this menu here of the first Thanksgiving menu? And they'll see it's just very, very different. And then also amongst themselves, they'll see how they celebrate differently. So that's always been something different. That's from my partner Jake's, his family. They have fried turkey. So, that's something that I never really had until recently, was the fried turkey. They also have by the numbers, and you can find one by some of these infographics for the Christmas season too, like how much people spend, what is the amount. And so that's a good way to start conversations about the commercial side of holidays. Not only, and a lot of students like to talk about that. They like to talk, especially if they're older, like they like to talk about the commercialization of holidays and how to get away from that. So definitely infographics really point out a lot of different things that students may not normally talk about with holidays. You can have your students go on a nature walk. So when I was teaching very young learners and also adolescents in Germany, one thing we would do is we'd go to a forest and we'd have different classes gather. It's like a little field trip. And what we would do is, it was a playground, but in Germany they have a lot of places where there's a lot of nature. And our students had the job of, in small groups, they would gather, different things for our big Thanksgiving feast. So they had to act like Native Americans, and also they had to act like the pilgrims, because the way that that table was decorated wasn't from things that were bought. They were things that were gathered. So they collect leaves, sticks, rocks. They can take pictures of the tables. We ask them, what do you make table settings out of? All kinds of things, so they can think about, how it was in the past when you had a big feast, how you decorated the table. You couldn't go buy things and things like that. So everyone would contribute to the table setting and stuff. Yes, exactly. That's Peggy says, George says, it would be a fun thing to create a table centerpiece for the dinner. Yes. And the students did enjoy that a lot. And then, of course, we already had a meal like prepared for them, some certain things that we would have around for the students to sit around and gather. And then they would listen to, the Thanksgiving story and how two different cultures came together to really show the power of collaboration and acceptance and learning from each other. They can make this into a digital book or a memory book using Edubuncy, Powtoon, Bite Slides, Pic Collage, Glogster, Canva. Another scholastic resource that I love is this digital scrapbook. It's of a pilgrim girl. She's a pilgrim teenager, and it's interactive, so students can read. They can see pictures of her life. They can also read the history behind those pictures. They can take quizzes. They can see recipes. You can see different spotlights of her life that was back then. And so your students can look at the scrapbook, and then they can create their own. So some of the resources I already listed. And you can also find those different resources if you go to, and these are free ways for your students to make digital scrapbooks, digital posters, and we've already done a session on that, but you might want to do, you can look at shellyterrell.com/poster and you'll find those. So the idea is that they actually research a character from the past, like Patience Whipple, and then they create a digital scrapbook of that person. They imagine that pioneer or that Native American a character, how they would be in modern life. So you can do that with edubuncy.com. You can do that with eduglogster.com. You can do that with canva.com. Scholastic has also, they could do a voyage on the Mayflower, so they can see what it's like to really be able to go on a voyage back then. And you can talk about the students, if they've ever been on a boat, have they ever traveled on water, if they've ever traveled on a big large boat, what were their experiences, and how those experiences were very different than in the 1620s. And so they can see the different hardships. This is an interactive timeline. It has little videos. It has it has pictures. It has very short descriptions. So it makes for short readings that are easy for your students to learn about. But how life was back then, how long, how many days, how many people got sick. And so they're able to take the journey and see what this journey was about. There's also, from different perspectives, once again, Scholastic has points of views in letters that you can read from a Native American boy and a Pilgrim girl. So next week, my students are writing an email they're choosing one of the characters, they're choosing the letters, and then they're going to write either text messages and emails back and forth to one of the students. So because those are our modern communication. So they won't write a letter because our students don't usually write letters anymore, but They can practice email writing as if that was their pen pal and what they would tell them. But the great thing about it is, even though they're college students and they're learning from teens, is they get to see how very different looking at their lives and how they communicated and how they grew up and what their expectations are is very different from the life they lead today. So today their characters wouldn't have cell phones, they wouldn't have Facebook, they wouldn't have Twitter, they wouldn't have any kind of technology, they wouldn't even have had a TV. They would have been expected to work, they would have been expected to do different chores than they do now. So it's interesting that the students get to see how different life was in the past in general. They can also retell the story of Thanksgiving. If you have very young learners, even while I was teaching 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, one of the things we would do is we use a lot of finger puppets. And so we could retell any kind of story with a finger puppet. And I'll show you where you can see different finger puppets that are easy to create. Your students can create them. Your older students, if they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and up, can read from different plays. They can also, your children can retell stories with puppets in general. And then, of course, with adults and other students, you can also use book tools where they actually create a digital story or a digital book. And you can find those free resources for doing that. I'll show you one right now that's very easy, one of the easiest ways to do that, to create a digital story. But we do have, in fact, maybe next week we'll talk about digital storytelling ideas and talk about digital storytelling in general, because there's a lot of them. And Peggy George said, yeah, Storybird. Storybird is the easiest way to tell a digital story. So that's definitely one that you would want or may want to use. Kids in kidsinco.blogspot.com has 2 different Thanksgiving plays that your students can read aloud and role play from. And they're free to download and to read. They don't want you to repost them unless you have a link to their site. So that is one thing to be mindful about. But you can use their plays, and your students are able to play different characters. And then so they can read off of this, or your students, after reading and listening or watching a video about the Thanksgiving story, they could create their own plays with similar themes. So Storybird.com, that is one of the tools I recommend for retelling or telling stories that revolve around the Thanksgiving theme, because you have professional artists who provide you a bunch of great art. This one, they have different examples on the site as well that your students can learn from and see. They have this one that was called Happy Thanksgiving, Mr. Cat. They also have where all your students have to do. So this is very quick. If you get the computer lab for a day or even for 10 or 15 minutes, your students could go in and they can create the Storybird very quickly. I believe there's a free 30-day teacher account. And with the teacher account, your students don't even have to log in. They can also collaboratively work on a story together. All they do is provide the text, and then whatever, and it's free anyway. Even if you don't have a teacher account, you can register for a regular free account. But if you want to avoid registering your students, then you would have to have a teacher account. But it's very easy for them to do. So here's some other writing ideas. You can research, your students can research a person who took part in the Thanksgiving story and tell from their different kinds of viewpoints. So we looked at already the Pilgrim and the Native American boy and girl, but how about, for example, a tribal leader, someone that would have been in charge of the tribe, that would have sat in front of the head of the table? They could choose that person to tell the story from. How about maybe a pastor or a preacher of the village? How about a man or a woman, a pilgrim, or a man pilgrim? Or how about an adult female? You know, what would have been her role? How would she have participated? So you can tell from different points of views in research what it would have been nice. There's also for example, they can foretell what the future would have been like if this event had not taken place, because this event impacts everyone around the world. If the Native Americans and the Pilgrims hadn't gotten along, weren't able to set aside their differences and come together, what would have been the future of America? And how would that have affected other countries as well? Describe how they celebrate different celebrations. They can write a digital story about that. They can write a story about unlikely friendships and how you know, two different cultures and traditions, maybe even that are close to them, get along or try to get along. Makebelievecom has some great printables with the holidays. Here's one that they have to imagine their Thanksgiving feast, but there's tons and tons that they have that you can just either show on a LCD projector, which is usually what I do, or I'll put this on their discussion under Canva. My students are able to see the image and then they respond, and that's their discussion, their writing prompt. So there's tons of them. There's over 300 writing prompts on Make Believe Comics. They can create a funny story. It's a great way for them to use grammar. This is from National Geographic, Kids National Geographic. The students put in an adjective, they put in plural nouns, they put in a relative's name, they past tense verbs, so they do learn about different grammar. And they love this. They want to play it again and again just so that they can, and they like to show each other their funny stories that come about. So this is a funny fill-in from Kids National Geographic. There are a lot of games that they can play. So one of the ones that I think is really great that teenagers will like, and also 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and they have to have a little bit of probably intermediate level of English, but also if you teach geography, this is really good. It talks about culture. If you teach CLIL, content language integrated learning, then this is a great game. It's an adventure game. They don't have to register, sign up, anything like that. They just click, they make decisions. The first decision is where they want to land as an explorer, and then they have to make decisions based on it. What I do is afterwards I have my students reflect, and they have to write a paragraph that talks about what happened, what choices they made, what happened, were they successful as an explorer, or did they not survive? In some cases you don't survive depending on but you can keep playing again, and so the students will sometimes keep playing again till they survive. And then we talk about if they played again, what was did they get a different result, and what choices did they make that gave them that different result, and how that reflects on the history of what they just learned. You can find a lot of quick, short games to play that just teach in drilling things like literacy, numbers, counting, just different types of basic vocabulary. If you go to primarygames.com, it's full of, for any holiday that comes up, you'll find tons of games at primarygames.com. And then there's, of course, some very cool apps. One of the apps is the Talking Turkey app. And so this is one that students really like a lot, where they get to take a turkey, and whatever you tell the turkey, he repeats back in a very funny voice and mocks you. And I have found that that students really love this talking turkey. And if you have very shy students, and I've had very shy, especially young learners, they are unshy to talk to the turkey. They will rap to the turkey. They will recite songs and finger chants. So they really do like this talking turkey a lot. This is part of you see a lot of them. The talking tom, the cat, is the most popular of these. you can make a short little video if with the students talking and things like that. Thank you, Hiram, for sharing that of the Google ones. So definitely, there's a lot of ways that your students can create a message and they can talk. They can make it talk. So one of the things they can do is that they can have where the turkey pleads for its life. And you can talk about that too. You know how and I would recommend older students with this. I mean, it could still be children, but you don't want little kids crying too much. So I think that that's something to consider. Or one of the practices that a lot of people often do is they'll have where the turkey, um, where they talk about blessings. So since you can make a little video, the turkey can talk about, you know, what they are thankful for and things like that. The students can just disguise themselves. And they can send that video to relatives. They can send that to, they can send that to friends and family members. So that's one of the options. There's one app that's free for autism. Visual Works has a lot of different apps that are for that are for the holidays, but also for students with autism. So that could be something that you definitely look at. So um, there's a lot of, I like these books because they have a lot of literacy things for visual learners in general. So you don't necessarily have to use them with students who have autism, but they have sounds, they have phonics, they have where they highlight words, and it's interactive reading. So I like the Visual Works series. Not all of them are free, but I believe the Thanksgiving one, this one is the Mr. Turkey, Where Are You? The holiday ones tend to be free. And it was created by a mom with a child that is autistic, so it's really great. For very, very young learners, your very young learners will enjoy the Thanksgiving puzzles that's from this company. And these apps are also for Android. They're also for a Kindle. So they have all of these. One of the great things that I really like is the actual company itself. If you have this one, then one of the great things is that this company in general has tons of free. It's the Scott Alderman, and Scott Alderman, he has. I'll put it in, but he has so many free apps that are for very young learners. You can find apps for 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7, and I find like a lot of times it's hard to find digital resources for that age group. For older students, they may want to make a holiday card, and redstamp.com, which is for iOS and Android as well, and it's free. They can create different appreciation cards, and they can include pictures. They have different templates. They have it for different cultures. They have it for Hanukkah. They have some themes for the fall, for Thanksgiving, for Halloween, for Christmas, for Diwali, for Kwanzaa. They have just different holidays that your students, so we can respect all cultures. They can send a card to a family member, a friend, a teacher, to loved ones. So redstamp.com. And then, of course, you can find all these resources if you go to shellyterrell.com, Thanksgiving. If you scroll down, you'll see my you'll see my Pearl Tree, and that's always full of tons more resources than are shared at these webinars. So thank you so much for coming, and we hope that you have a wonderful holiday season no matter what you celebrate, and we hope and we will see you next week. I'm going to go ahead and try and show you the webcam real quick of Roscoe and I. I don't know why it's so large here, but we will say Happy Halloween, and we was going ahead and Uh, see you next week. I'm going to go ahead and stop this webcam and hide it because it's so big. But thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone, and have a great weekend.